Why do we suddenly become fascinated by our soup the moment someone mentions death at a dinner party? Because it's the ultimate taboo. Today, we're deconstructing Jeremy Brunansky's Death, a morbid curiosity or just bad dinner conversation. An essay that transforms mortality from a dark cloud into a high-performance manual for your daily life. From Roman emperors to Elton John, we're mapping the symbiosis of vocation. You'll learn why your personal fulfillment is the literal shield someone else needs to survive. It's time to render a life worth watching. Grab your coffee, tea, or wine. It's time for another episode of The Sidebar.
So, there is this totally unspoken rule at basically every dinner party you will ever go to.
Oh, yeah, the ultimate conversation killer.
Right. Like, you absolutely do not talk about death.
Okay.
You bring immortality over, the appetizers, and suddenly everyone is just staring super intently at their soup.
Just desperately searching for a way to change the subject.
Exactly. It's taboo. But what if the reason we refuse to talk about dying isn't actually because we fear the end itself? What if we avoid it because it forces us to confront this terrifying possibility that we haven't actually started living?
That is the big question.
It really is. And today, we're doing a deep dive into an incredibly ambitious text that tackles this exact dinner party taboo head on. It's this essay written in 2019 by Jeremy Brunansky.
And the title is just perfect.
It is. It's called Death, a Morbid Curiosity or Just Bad Dinner Conversation.
I love that title.
Me too. So we are going to spend this deep dive meticulously unpacking his central thesis, focusing exclusively on the core text of his essay. And the mission here for you, the listener, isn't just to talk about the end of life. That is really just the entry point.
Right, it's the hook.
Yeah. The true objective is to decode how Brunansky synthesizes this astonishingly diverse roster of global philosophies, right? And he uses them to create this manual for how you live your life right now, today.
And the lineup of sources he uses is wild. I mean, it is an extraordinarily bold intellectual synthesis.
We are talking ancient Greek philosophy, Roman emperors, Chinese dualism, Christian theology. Mark Twain is in there.
Elton John.
Yes, Elton John. And even Ronald Reagan makes an appearance.
Which sounds crazy, but the way he weaves these totally disparate voices together is, well, it's what makes the essay so compelling. He isn't just quoting historical figures to sound smart.
But he's building something.
Yep, exactly. He is building a structural argument. He takes the cold, hard logic of antiquity, blends it with the existential urgency of 19th century literature.
Which is a brilliant mix on its own.
It is, but then he balances it with both Eastern and Western spiritual frameworks and ultimately arrives at this highly practical, very modern theory about human purpose.
The symbiosis of human vocation.
Yes, the symbiosis of human vocation. It's this fascinating proposition that our individual callings are deeply, inextricably linked to the survival and fulfillment of everyone around us.
But, I mean, before we can even get to that grand theory of human interconnectedness, we kind of have to set the stage, right? Because we have to look at the very specific, highly personal context out of which this essay was even born.
Yeah, the setup is crucial here.
Because Brunansky doesn't start in the clouds. He starts at his desk. He gives us the exact real-world setting. It is a Saturday night. It's well past his normal bedtime.
He's tired.
Super tired. Because he has spent the entire day operating a camera, filming what he very specifically refers to as a celebration of life for an old family friend.
And we should pause there because he makes a very distinct point to differentiate this from, like, a traditional somber funeral.
Yeah. What's the difference in his eyes?
Well, a celebration of life, as he defines it, it shifts the focus entirely. It aims to highlight the splendor, the humor, the sheer vitality of the person's existence.
Rather than just drowning in the sorrow of them passing.
Exactly. He notes that the explicit goal of the day he filmed was to have fewer tears and far more anecdotes.
I love that. Fewer tears, more anecdotes.
Right. And the widow had asked him to film the ceremony so she could have this permanent keepsake of all these amazing stories. So he arrived early, set up his gear, documented the whole memorial, attended the reception, and now
he's just sitting there.
Yeah. In the quiet hours of the night, he is sitting completely alone in front of his computer.
Waiting for the software to do its thing.
Yes. And here is where we find that really striking juxtaposition that basically fuels the entire essay. He tells the reader he is waiting for Final Cut, which is a professional video editing software, to finish rendering the edits in the background.
Which, if you've ever edited video, takes
A
forever.
considerable amount of time, yeah. But think about the stark contrast in that image. On one hand, you have this highly modern, almost tedious technological chore.
Just watching a loading bar.
Right. He is staring at a progress bar slowly creeping across a glowing blue monitor in a dark room. But on the other hand, mentally, he is steeped in the heaviest, most ancient, eternal topic known to humanity.
The absolute finality of death.
Exactly. He's literally sitting there waiting for a machine to process the visual digital evidence of a man's entire existence.
Wow.
It is in this quiet liminal space of waiting for the software to finish its job that his mind just begins to drift toward the massive philosophical implications of the day.
You know, I actually want to, linger on that image of the software rendering for a second, because I think there is a really profound, maybe hidden analogy there.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about what a computer is actually doing when it renders a video. It takes hours and hours of raw, chaotic, totally disjointed footage, right?
Yeah.
And it has to process millions of individual pixels. It smooths out the jarring transitions, color grades the harsh lighting, balances the messy audio, and slowly stitches all those fragments together into a coherent, beautiful narrative that you can actually sit down, watch, and understand.
That is a great way to put it.
And to me, that technological process perfectly mirrors what the human mind does when we experience a profound loss. Like, we literally render our grief and our memories.
We edit the footage of their life in our heads.
Exactly. We take the raw, sometimes chaotic data of a person's life,
Yeah.
the messy parts, the beautiful parts, the inside jokes, the conflicts, and over time, operating just in the background of our daily lives, our brains process all of that data into a narrative we can hold on to. We turn a messy life into a keepsake.
That is an incredibly perceptive way to frame it, the psychological rendering of a human life.
Yeah.
And Brunansky is essentially engaging in two forms of rendering simultaneously on this Saturday night, right?
Oh, totally.
He is technologically rendering the video for the widow, but he is also philosophically rendering his own understanding of mortality through writing this essay.
And he knows full well that the topic he is about to dive into carries a tremendous amount of cultural baggage. Like we said at the start, people immediately tense up when death is mentioned.
They look at their soup.
Right. So he preempts the reader's hesitation right out of the gate. He writes, how morbid. Calm down. This won't be a depressing post.
I love that, just immediately disarming the reader.
Yeah, he wants to examine this topic without prejudice, and crucially, without preaching his own specific religious beliefs to the reader.
Which is hard to do when talking about death.
Really hard. But to have a truly open conversation about mortality, he realizes he has to establish a baseline that everyone can agree on, regardless of their background.
And to find that universally acceptable baseline, he bypasses modern religion entirely. He reaches way, way back to ancient Greece.
Oh, this is the Epicurus part.
Yes. He opens his argument with the super famous quote from the philosopher Epicurus. He quotes, "Death does not concern us because as long as we exist, death is not here. And when it does come, we no longer exist."
Such a mic drop quote.
It really is. It is a brilliant starting point because it acts as this ultimate logical firewall. But to fully grasp why Brunansky uses this, we need to understand that Epicurus was a strict materialist.
Right, and we should clarify that because in modern terms, when we say someone is a materialist,
We usually mean they are obsessed with buying expensive cars or designer clothes.
exactly, like chasing money and physical stuff.
But in classical philosophy, materialism means something entirely different. It is the belief that absolutely nothing exists except physical matter and its movements.
So no spirit realm.
Right. Epicurus believed that the human soul was not some ethereal, immortal spirit, but rather it was just a collection of physical atoms that simply disperse when the body dies.
Okay, so how does that connect to us not fearing death?
Well, he argued that in order to experience pain, fear, or suffering of any kind, you must possess physical awareness. If death is the permanent cessation of all awareness, then it is physically impossible for you to experience death.
Because you aren't there to feel it.
Exactly. When you are alive, death is absent. When death arrives, you are absent. The two states never, ever intersect.
That is just incredible logic.
Brunansky uses this logic to completely wipe the slate clean. Before we get into complex discussions about legacy or the afterlife, he establishes the cold, hard baseline. The actual state of being dead cannot physically harm you while you are alive.
I want the listener to really consider how that ancient Greek logic sits with your own modern anxieties. Like, if you really internalize Epicurus, does it soothe the dread?
It should, logically.
Right, because on paper, it is a bulletproof argument. It's a bit like being terrified of the dark, but coming to the realization that the dark only exists in a room you will never, ever be standing in.
That's a great analogy. Why fear a room you can never enter?
Exactly. But here's the friction point, right? Humans are not purely logical creatures. We just aren't.
Not even a little bit.
We are emotional, biological beings, and we are hardwired with this profound survival instinct. Epicurus provides a fantastic logical baseline, but it feels incredibly clinical.
It doesn't really help when you're awake at 3 a.m.
No, it doesn't solve the emotional reality of sitting at that dinner party and feeling that cold sweat when mortality is brought up. So if Epicurus is right and logically he is it, why does the mere mention of death still leave us so utterly flustered?
And that friction is exactly what propels Brunansky's essay into its next phase, because Epicurus forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. If we aren't actually terrified of the physical state of being dead, since we won't be there to feel it, what is it that we are actually afraid of?
What's the real root of the panic?
Yes. And the essay pivots to answer this by suggesting this radical misdiagnosis of the human condition. He says we don't fear the final destination. What terrifies us is the unlived middle.
The unlived middle. Wow.
We fear the realization that the timeline is running out before we have done what we were meant to do.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to articulate this idea, Brunansky pairs two historical figures who could not be more different from each other, yet they arrive at the exact same conclusion.
Mark Twain and Marcus Aurelius.
Right, the great American novelist and the Roman emperor. Let's look at Twain first. Brunansky quotes him saying, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time."
That is such a sharp diagnosis of human anxiety.
It really is. Twain is essentially saying that our existential anxiety is just a symptom of cowardice in our daily lives. Like, if you are terrified of dying, is it because deep down you are terrified that you haven't dared to live?
Exactly. It's the psychological burden of potential. Twain is arguing that a fulfilled life creates a state of readiness.
A readiness to go.
Yeah. When you engage with your life fully, you exhaust your potential in the best possible way. You leave nothing on the table. But if you hold back, if you let fear dictate your choices, you accumulate this massive debt of unfulfilled potential.
And as the end approaches, that debt becomes terrifying.
You aren't afraid of the void. You are afraid of the regret.
You know, think of it like a trip to an incredible, massive theme park.
Okay, I'm with you.
If you spend the entire day at this park, riding every single roller coaster,
Yeah.
eating all the terrible junk food, exploring every corner of the park, and watching the final fireworks show, by the time midnight rolls around and the park announces that it's closing, you are exhausted.
Your feet hurt? You're full of funnel cake?
Exactly. But you are satisfied. You are ready to go home and sleep. But imagine if you went to that exact same park and spent the entire 12 hours just standing near the entrance gate. Like you're too paralyzed by fear or indecision to buy a ticket for a single ride.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
Right. So when that midnight announcement comes over the loudspeakers that the park is closing, it induces sheer panic because you missed it. The opportunity is completely gone, and you never even participated.
That analogy perfectly captures the transition Brunansky makes to Marcus Aurelius, because he points out that long before Mark Twain was writing novels about riverboats, this exact same truth was understood at the absolute pinnacle of global power.
Right, in ancient Rome.
He quotes the Roman emperor directly. "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live."
Which is a staggering observation when you consider the source.
Think about who is saying this. Aurelius was a man who commanded massive armies. He ruled the known world. He witnessed death on a daily industrial scale.
He saw it constantly.
Yet, from his incredibly unique vantage point, the ultimate tragedy of the human experience wasn't mortality. The ultimate tragedy was treating your own existence with apathy and indifference. Aurelius views never truly engaging with your life as a fate fundamentally worse than dying.
And the consensus there between the 19th century American satirist and the 2nd century Roman emperor is undeniable. Humanity has nothing to fear for the biological off switch.
Right.
Instead, our sole mandate is to take action, to pursue a life that is so deeply engaged and fulfilled that when death finally arrives, you can, to use Brunansky's phrasing, greet her with a welcome smile.
A welcome smile.
But I have to stop here and play devil's advocate for a second because I think we really need to interrogate this idea.
Let's do it.
Is it truly realistic to expect a normal human being to greet death with a welcomed smile simply because they checked off all their personal goals?
That's a fair question.
Like, Does earthly accomplishment truly eradicate millions of years of evolutionary programming? We are biologically hardwired at a cellular level to survive. Can writing a great book or traveling the world or raising a beautiful family truly override that primal biological panic when the end approaches?
That is the critical distinction we have to make here, and it requires separating our biological hardware from our psychological software.
Okay, software versus hardware. I like that.
I do not believe Brunansky or Twain, or Aurelius for that matter, are arguing that a fulfilled life somehow turns off your biological flinch response to immediate physical danger.
Right, if a bear attacks you, you're going to run.
Exactly. If a car swerves into your lane or wild animal lunges at you, your amygdala will flood your system with adrenaline, your heart rate will spike, and you will fight to survive, regardless of how perfectly fulfilled your life has been up to that second. The biological mandate to keep breathing remains totally intact.
So what are they talking about then?
What these philosophers are targeting is not the sudden physical threat of death. They are talking about the quiet, creeping existential dread.
The late-night thoughts.
They are talking about the 3.0 a.m. panic, that deep dread that keeps you awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what the point of it all is. Fulfillment doesn't erase the biological instinct to survive a car crash, but it completely neutralizes the psychological regret of having wasted the gift of time.
That makes so much sense.
When the inevitable decline finally happens, when it is no longer a sudden threat, but a natural conclusion, fulfillment allows for graceful surrender rather than bitter, agonizing resistance.
That makes perfect sense. It shifts our energy away from a futile attempt to avoid the unavoidable and redirects it toward maximizing the present, which is entirely within our control.
Exactly. Focus on the ride, not the park closing.
But as soon as we establish that we must maximize our present lives and chase fulfillment to defeat our existential dread, we run headfirst into another massive, centuries-old dilemma.
Oh, yes. The big one.
And Brunansky anticipates this friction perfectly. He poses a hypothetical counter-argument to his own thesis, asking the reader to consider a very specific, deeply ingrained cultural fear. He writes, and I'm quoting here, "But Jeremy, what if, by living a life of fulfillment, our passions in this life prevent us from an enjoyable life in the hereafter?"
This is a profound tension he is tapping into. He is addressing the historical and frequently religious guilt associated with earthly pleasure and ambition.
The idea that having too much fun now means you pay for it later.
Yes. There is a deeply seated cultural anxiety, one heavily influenced by various ascetic traditions, that if you enjoy this physical world too much, you are somehow corrupting your immortal soul.
Like asceticism, where you deny yourself basic pleasures.
Right. Asceticism, in broad terms, is a lifestyle characterized by strict abstinence from sensual pleasures, often for the purpose of pursuing spiritual goals. Many belief systems operate on a subtle, underlying assumption that the material world is inherently fallen or sinful. And that suffering, or at least denying yourself fulfillment here, is the currency you must use to purchase paradise later.
It is the idea that human existence is basically this miserable, sterile waiting room.
Yes.
Your only job is to sit quietly, read the old magazines, and wait for your name to be called by the divine management. And if you try to decorate that waiting room, or throw a party in it, or basically pursue your wildest passions while you wait, management is going to be furious and punish you when they finally call you back.
You are supposed to suffer now to smile later.
Exactly.
And Brunansky masterfully dismantles this waiting room anxiety by constructing this incredible bridge between Eastern philosophy and Western religious doctrine.
It's quite a leap.
It is, but it works. To resolve this guilt, he first turns to the ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, the founder of philosophical Taoism. He introduces Lao Tzu's concept by quoting, "Life and death are one thread, the same line viewed from different sides." Yes. And this requires us to briefly understand a concept often referred to as Eastern dualism. Though in Taoism, it is perhaps better described as non-dualism or interconnectedness.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Unlike Western thought, which often strictly separates the physical body from the spiritual soul, or separates the secular from the divine, Lao Tzu suggests that existence is a singular, unified phenomenon.
The imagery of the one thread is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Like, if existence is truly a single continuous thread, the logic of cause and effect becomes basically inescapable.
How so?
Well, you cannot have a frayed, miserable, neglected thread on the left side of the knot and expect it to magically transform into a pristine, glowing golden thread on the right side of a knot. It is made of the exact same material.
Precisely. The logic of the thread dictates that what is truly fulfilling, harmonious, and inherently good on this side of the veil on Earth must naturally translate to the other side, the afterlife. The energy doesn't change, it just continues.
That's beautiful.
It is. But Brunansky knows that an Eastern philosophical metaphor might not fully convince an audience steeped in Western religious traditions.
Right. He knows his audience.
So he reinforces Lao Tzu's one thread with Western Christian theology. He quotes the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 18. "Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven."
It is so brilliant how he layers those two texts.
Yes.
He takes the philosophical concept of the continuous thread from China and anchors it directly to the biblical mechanism of binding from the Middle East.
Yes.
But he isn't using the Bible quote to preach dogma. He is using it to validate the pursuit of earthly fulfillment.
Yes. He analyzes the Matthew quote in the exact context of human purpose. He argues that this verse supports the notion that human beings are more than just their temporal actions.
Right.
If what you bind on earth is bound in heaven, then earthly fulfillment, when pursued with genuine purpose and not just empty hedonism, is not a rebellion against the divine order. It is a continuation of it.
So the passions you pursue, the good you build, the love you cultivate, these are the things you are actively binding.
Exactly. You do not have to choose between a meaningful, fulfilled life now and a peaceful existence later. They are on the exact same trajectory. The fear that pursuing your calling will damn you is entirely resolved.
Wow. And if you view your own life through this lens as a single continuous thread where your daily choices, your specific passions, and your creative output are permanently bound to your ultimate legacy, how does that alter your decision-making today?
It changes everything.
Whether you view that legacy as a literal theological heaven or simply as the energetic echo you leave behind in the memories of your community, does it finally relieve the guilt of pursuing your own joy?
It should give you immense freedom.
Brunansky is essentially giving the reader philosophical and theological permission to be fully unapologetically fulfilled. But this brings us to the absolute core of the entire essay, the million-dollar question. If we have established that we must find fulfillment to defeat the fear of death, and we have established that doing so actually secures our peace, both here and in the hereafter, how do we actually achieve this fulfillment?
Right. What are the practical steps?
Because, let's be honest, we cannot all be Roman emperors conquering territories, and we cannot all be Mark Twain writing masterpieces. Most of us just have normal jobs.
And here we arrive at the absolute engine of the essay, the specific mechanism that makes all of this abstract philosophical theory function in the real daily world. Brunansky calls it out explicitly in the text. He writes, "Okay, Jeremy, but how do we find fulfillment? Now we're cooking."
I love that he talks to himself in the text.
It's great. He recognizes that up to this point, fulfillment has been a totally abstract concept. Now he defines it. And his definition is what truly sets this essay apart from a standard self-help book.
Because his definition of fulfillment is entirely opposed to the modern hyper-individualistic view of success.
Yes, very different.
We often think of fulfillment as an isolated solo pursuit, right? It's the image of someone retreating to a mountaintop to find their own personal bliss, or ruthlessly climbing the corporate ladder to secure their own financial independence, completely ignoring the rest of the world.
Pulling up the ladder behind them.
Exactly. But Brunansky flatly rejects that. He states that true fulfillment is found by doing what we are uniquely destined to do, which inherently, by its very nature, helps others find their calling.
It's totally interconnected.
He even injects a bit of pop culture humor here, referencing Elton John's The Circle of Life to illustrate his point.
It is a profound shift from a selfish paradigm to a collective one. He introduces what we can call the symbiosis of human vocation.
The symbiosis.
He argues that every true calling, when pursued with genuine fulfillment, serves a structural, load-bearing purpose in the larger human ecosystem. We are all deeply interdependent. To prove this, he breaks down human callings into distinct categories of vocation.
And it is crucial that we analyze these categories in extensive detail, because this is where you, the listener, can actually locate yourself within Brunansky's philosophy.
Let's do it. Let's look at the first category he identifies, the protectors.
Okay, the protectors. He describes them as people who are called to a life of service and defense. He specifically lists the military, policing, firefighting, government officials, and religious clerics.
Which is an interesting mix.
Right, because on the surface, these seem like very different jobs. A soldier on a battlefield and a cleric in a sanctuary are doing vastly different things day to day. but Brunansky groups them together because of their fundamental function in the ecosystem.
And if you look at the underlying utility of those roles through his lens, it makes perfect sense. The protectors are not just executing physical tasks, they are manifesting a literal and spiritual safe space.
They are the walls of the city.
Yes. When a firefighter willingly walks into a burning building to extinguish a blaze, or a soldier secures a perimeter, or a cleric provides moral and spiritual sanctuary for a community in crisis, they are actively absorbing the immediate existential threats of the world.
You're taking the hit.
Exactly. By managing the chaos and protecting the future, they are buying time and security for the rest of society. They handle the immediate danger so that others have the quiet, secure luxury to sit down, look inward, and figure out what makes them feel alive.
That is just a staggering way to view civil service. The protector's personal fulfillment literally acts as a shield that allows someone else's self-discovery to happen.
Exactly.
If you are constantly running from a predator or trying to put out a fire, you do not have the time to write a symphony or cure a disease. The protector gives you that time.
Which leads seamlessly into his next category of vocation. The creators.
The artists.
The artists, the painters, the musicians, the filmmakers, the actors, the writers. In our modern hyper-capitalist society, art is frequently dismissed as a luxury or just a frivolous side hobby, right?
Oh, constantly. When are you getting a real job?
Exactly. But Brunansky elevates the creator to a crucial, life-saving survival mechanism within this ecosystem.
Because the creators are the ones who process the complex emotional data of the human experience. He points out that artists, through the manifestation of their work, bring totally new possibilities into the world.
He writes that the artist might help someone answer a fundamental question about their life that they hadn't even thought to ask yet.
Yes, the creator processes pain, joy, grief, and love, and puts it into a format, a painting, a song, a film that others can easily consume. And as a result of consuming that art, a person's emotional baggage is relieved, the internal knots are untangled, and they can move forward into their own life renewed. Art provides an emotional vocabulary for people who are psychologically paralyzed.
Let's make this incredibly tangible for a second. Have you ever been driving in your car, entirely overwhelmed by a situation in your life? Like a terrible breakup, a career failure, a loss,
Right.
and you feel like you are suffocating because you can't even articulate why you hurt so much.
We've all been there, just gripping the steering wheel.
Right. And then a specific song comes on the radio, and the lyrics, the melody, the raw emotion of the singer's voice suddenly articulate exactly what you are feeling. It is as if the artist reached through the speakers, grabbed the tangled mess in your chest, and laid it out perfectly.
And in that moment, you cry, you breathe, and this massive weight just lifts.
Because that musician lived their fulfilled calling, your baggage got lighter. Because they did their job, you are now unblocked and free to pursue yours. That is the exact symbiosis Brunansky is illustrating.
It is a profound transfer of emotional energy.
Yeah.
But the symbiosis is not limited to the ethereal or emotional realms, right?
Yeah.
It applies just as heavily to the physical, practical realities of daily life.
Absolutely. And this is where he introduces the third category, the innovators.
The scientists and engineers.
The scientists, the engineers, the technologists, the architects.
I deeply appreciate that he gets incredibly practical here. He uses very specific, mundane examples. Light rail trains and teleconferencing software.
Mundane but vital.
Right. He points out that someone's life and their ability to find their calling might be completely stalled because of a physical barrier. Maybe you live in a city where the traffic is so brutal that you spend 4 hours a day just commuting.
Which leaves you completely exhausted and drained.
You have no energy left to find your purpose. But then, an engineer whose calling is urban transit design lives their best, most fulfilled life and develops a highly efficient light rail system. Because they fulfilled their vocation, your physical burden is relieved. You get your time back.
Or consider the software engineer who spent years obsessing over video compression and network latency to develop seamless teleconferencing software.
Like Zoom or Teams.
Exactly. They lived their calling, and because of that scientific breakthrough, a single parent can now work from home. That parent suddenly has 2 extra hours a day, hours previously spent sitting in a car to spend raising their children or writing a novel or studying for a degree.
The innovator's fulfillment builds the physical and technological infrastructure that allows the rest of humanity to accelerate their own journeys.
They build the roads that the creators and the protectors drive on.
But wait, I have to challenge this slightly.
Okay, push back.
It sounds totally utopian, but what happens when the system breaks down? Does technology truly free us, or does it trap us? Like, you could easily argue that teleconferencing software didn't free up our time. It just blurred the boundaries between the office and the living room, causing massive societal burnout.
That is a very real critique.
Wait. What happens when the innovator's creation overwhelms the creator? Or when the protector is completely paralyzed by trauma from all the chaos they absorb? Brunansky's machine needs a maintenance layer.
And that is precisely why he includes the fourth and final category, the communicators.
Ah, the glue.
This is perhaps the most subtle yet most vital vocation in the entire ecosystem. He describes communicators as people who possess the profound gift of conversation.
These are the empathetic listeners.
The counselors, the mentors, the deep friends, their specific calling is to engage with others and through the sheer power of dialogue, help people rediscover themselves.
Wow.
When the protector is burned out or the innovator is lost in the weeds of their own technology or the creator is blocked, it is the communicator who sits down with them over a cup of coffee and helps them remove the psychological blocks preventing them from answering their call.
It really is a perfectly enclosed, self-sustaining ecosystem. Every single vocation is a vital gear in a massive machine.
It all connects.
Let's review it. The protector guards the innovator from physical chaos. The innovator builds the tools and infrastructure that allow the creator to distribute their work. The creator produces the art that inspires and emotionally sustains the communicator. And the communicator heals the psychological wounds of the protector.
It's brilliant.
If you are doing what you are meant to do, whatever that is, you are automatically greasing the wheels for someone else to do what they are meant to do.
To summarize this deeply interdependent web, Brunansky pulls perhaps the most surprising source in the entire essay.
Oh, this is the Reagan part.
Yes. He turns to the 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. He uses a quote from Reagan to act as the capstone for this entire theory of vocational symbiosis.
Well, let's hear the quote.
Reagan said, "Let us ask ourselves, what kind of people do we think we are? And let us answer, free people, worthy of freedom and determined not only to remain so, but to help others gain their freedom as well."
Now, I have to step in here and push back on Brunansky's use of this quote because context really matters.
It does.
Reagan delivered those words in a highly specific political era. He was talking about geopolitical freedom, the Cold War, the struggle of democracy versus authoritarianism, and the projection of military and economic power.
So, is it philosophically valid for Brunansky to rip this quote entirely out of its 20th century political context and apply it to an essay about spiritual and vocational fulfillment? Doesn't that warp the original intent of the text?
That is a very fair critique, and it raises a vital question about how philosophers interact with historical rhetoric. But to his credit, Brunansky anticipates this exact pushback.
He knows it's a stretch.
He explicitly acknowledges the leap he is making, writing, "It's possible he didn't mean a life is freed once it's answering its calling, but still, the core of his statement rings true to this writing."
Okay, so he admits it.
Yes, and I would firmly defend Brunansky's repurposing of the quote here because he is drilling down to the philosophical bedrock that sits beneath the politics. Think about it. What is the ultimate purpose of geopolitical freedom?
To live your life how you want. Exactly. Why do we desire open societies and democracies? We want political freedom so that the individual has the space and the right to self-actualize. If a human life is only truly freed once it is answering its calling, living fully, and operating without the paralyzing fear of death, then helping others find their purpose is the highest order application of spreading freedom.
That is a fascinating way to look at it.
Geopolitical freedom is merely the prerequisite. Vocational and spiritual freedom is the ultimate realization of Reagan's quote.
That is a brilliant defense. You are right. The political freedom Reagan spoke of is the fertile soil, but the vocational fulfillment Brunansky is mapping out is the tree that actually grows from it.
Beautifully said.
So let's look at what we have constructed here. We have this incredible sweeping theory, this beautiful, interdependent web of human callings where everyone executing their unique purpose perfectly enables everyone else.
It solves so many problems.
It solves Twain and Aurelius's fear of the unlived life, which in turn solves Epicurus's fear of death, while perfectly satisfying Lao Tzu's thread of continuity.
Right.
It is an absolute masterpiece of synthesis.
But,
right, does it hold up in the messy reality of normal human life? Or is this just a beautiful utopian idea typed out by a guy waiting for a video to render on a Saturday night?
and this is where Brunansky sticks the landing. To prove the concept, to show that this isn't just an abstract thought experiment, he executes this brilliant narrative loop. He brings the essay all the way back to the opening scene.
The Saturday night desk.
He returns to the real-world event he had spent the entire day filming, the celebration of life.
Right, the very footage that is currently being processed by Final Cut on his computer. He turns his analytical lens onto the specific man who passed away.
The family friend.
Yeah, he tells us that this is a man who is deeply devoted to his wife, his local church, and his immediate community. And he notes that the memorial service was specifically structured as a celebration of life because of this man's deeply held spiritual beliefs.
And Brunansky details how the memorial began. The pastor opened the service by reading a verse from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him.
Now look at the tightrope Brunansky walks here as a writer.
It's a tricky pivot.
It really is. He has just taken his audience on a whirlwind tour of secular materialism, Roman Stoicism, Eastern philosophy, and pop culture. He knows his readership is incredibly diverse, and that quoting the New Testament might cause some secular readers to immediately disengage.
They might put their guard up.
So before he drops the verse, he essentially breaks the fourth wall, telling his audience not to tune out, get hot under the collar, and start clutching your pearls.
Yeah, he literally writes, soak 'em up, folks. I love the conversational tone there.
Me too.
Yeah.
He expects his readers to be mature enough to encounter diverse viewpoints without panicking. But why end with this specific verse after such a broad philosophical journey?
He uses this specific religious lens not to alienate his secular readers, but to provide absolute empirical proof of his overarching theory, manifested in the light of this one specific man.
How does it prove the theory?
Think about it. This man did not need to be a Roman emperor commanding legions to find his calling. He wasn't a famous novelist or an era-defining politician. His unique individual calling, his exact thread, was found in his quiet, steadfast devotion to his wife, his local congregation, and his neighborhood.
That was his vocation.
And because he lived that life with absolute fulfillment, he provided service, stability, and inspiration to everyone around him. He was a protector and a communicator in his own specific ecosystem.
It is the ultimate real-world validation of the theory. Brunansky writes, the kind words spoke about his impact and influence on family, friends, and colleagues resonated truth to this belief.
They weren't just platitudes.
Exactly. The eulogies and the anecdotes shared at the memorial weren't just the polite, empty words people often utter at funerals. They rang with absolute truth, because the man had actually done the work. He had lived his calling fully.
His fulfillment radiated outward.
Yes. It actively touched and enabled the lives of everyone sitting in those pews. The rendering of his life, both the video Brunansky was making and the memories the family was sharing, was beautiful because the raw, unfiltered footage of the man's daily existence was genuine.
It perfectly grounds the lofty philosophical theories into the deeply personal reality of human grief and love. It's safe to say, as Brunansky concludes, that the man whose memory they celebrated lived a profoundly fulfilled life.
Which changes how Brunansky views his own task.
Right. Because of that man's fulfilled life, the tedious task of editing the video late at night was no longer a chore for Jeremy. It was an honor and a privilege to create for the widow. The theoretical circle is totally closed.
And as we reach the conclusion of this deep dive, we really have to appreciate Brunansky's final send-off to his readers. After dropping all this heavy existential weight and wrestling with mortality, legacy, and theology, he closes the essay with this quirky, incredibly warm, and surprisingly funny blessing.
It's the perfect ending.
He writes, "May the life you live be fulfilled. May the fulfillment of your life inspire those around you to answer their calling. May you never eat bad sushi. And may you find at the end all you hoped you'd find."
May you never eat bad sushi. It is such a perfectly timed, disarming release of tension.
It really is. It completely cuts the gravity of what could have been an overwhelmingly heady philosophical treatise. And more importantly, it proves his initial promise at the very beginning of the text when he told the reader, calm down, this won't be a depressing post.
He kept his promise.
He managed to meticulously deconstruct death, the fear of the unlived life, the mechanics of the afterlife, and the collective purpose of humanity. And he ends it with a joke about avoiding food poisoning.
It is a brilliant reminder to the reader that being fully alive isn't just about lofty spiritual callings.
Right.
It is also about thoroughly enjoying the tangible, everyday sensory pleasures of the world. A good meal is part of the fulfillment. The mundane is just as sacred as the eternal.
If we synthesize this incredible journey of a text, look at the massive amount of ground we have covered today. We started with the cold, protective logic of Epicurus.
The realization that death physically cannot hurt us because we will not be present to experience it.
But we recognized that logic wasn't enough to soothe our emotional dread.
Which led us to the urgent warnings of Mark Twain and Marcus Aurelius. The realization that the true danger is not the end of life, but the tragedy of the unlived middle.
Then, to resolve the paralyzing guilt of enjoying this world versus preparing for the next, we balanced the scales.
With Lao Tzu's metaphor of the single continuous thread and the Christian theology of binding on earth and heaven.
Which unlocked the ultimate secret of the entire essay, the symbiosis of human vocation. The realization that building a functioning, interconnected society of mutual fulfillment is the only way to truly live well.
Whether you are the protector guarding the perimeter, the creator processing the emotion, the innovator building the tools, or the communicator healing the wounds, we are all holding each other up.
And we ended by seeing this exact theory proven true at a joyous, tear-free memorial service for a man who did exactly that in his own quiet community.
It is a powerful, paradigm-shifting reminder: death is completely normal. It is the absolute, unavoidable destination for every single one of us.
But it absolutely should not be feared, provided you are actively currently engaging in your unique purpose to help others.
If you are doing that, if you are answering your call, you are a vital component in the great machinery of human flourishing.
We started this conversation talking about the blue glow of a computer monitor, rendering a video, taking all those disjointed, chaotic fragments of footage and slowly stitching them together into a beautiful, coherent narrative.
The final cut.
The most beautiful realization of Jeremy Brunansky's essay is that you do not have to wait until the very end of your life to see how your video turns out. You are rendering your life right now, frame by frame, choice by choice.
You render it by how you interact with the people around you.
And by how deeply and unapologetically you pursue your own calling.
You are actively directing the final cut of your own existence.
Exactly. So we want to leave you with a specific, lingering question to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
A little homework.
Yeah. If human vocation is truly a symbiotic, interconnected web, as this text so beautifully suggests, I want you to look closely at the work you are doing right now, today. Whatever your job is, whatever your passion is, whatever conversations you're having.
Think about the impact.
Whose calling are you unknowingly enabling today? And as you walk down the street, or ride the train, or listen to a song, take a moment to wonder, who out there in the world is currently working, creating, innovating, and protecting, just to pave the way for yours?
Stay fresh, folks.
We'll see you next time.